ULTIMA goes to Tokyo Ghoul, T-Tigres x Tokyo Ghoul, by Veldanava-God. Chapter 11. The Hunters Become the Hunted. The dim glow of a single light bulb flickered in the cramped room where ULTIMA and CARRERA sat, their expressions serious as they mulled over the weight of the situation. A month had passed since they joined the Aogiri tree, and they had quickly earned a reputation. However, now they were being hunted. No, they were being targeted by the most feared investigator in the history of the CCG, Kisho Arima. ULTIMA tapped her fingers against the wooden desk in front of her, golden eyes narrowed in thought. Ito wasn't kidding when she said Arima would come after us. He's the best of the best, she muttered, her voice carrying a mix of irritation and excitement. But that doesn't mean we have to just sit here and wait to die. CARRERA smirked, leaning against the wall with her arms crossed. Yeah, that's not really our style, is it? If Arima is coming for us, then we should just flip the script and hunt him first. ULTIMA's lips curled into a sly grin. Exactly what I was thinking. But we can't go in blind. We need to plan this out. He's fast, precise, and incredibly skilled with his quinks. If we try to fight him head-on without a strategy, we're as good as dead. CARRERA scoffed. TCH. I hate to admit it, but you're right. So what's the plan, genius? ULTIMA pulled out a roughly drawn map of the 15th Ward and placed it between them. If he's looking for us, he'll probably be patrolling around the last place we struck. The alley where we wiped out that CCG squad. That means he'll be expecting us to return, but he won't know when. If we catch him alone, we might have a chance. CARRERA leaned forward, studying the map. All right. So we lure him into a place where he doesn't have much room to maneuver. That could work. His quinks are powerful, but if we force him into close combat, we can overwhelm him with sheer speed and strength. ULTIMA nodded. That's part of the plan. But we also have to assume he already knows we're coming. We need a secondary plan in case he turns the tables on us. CARRERA grinned. Sounds fun. What else do we got? ULTIMA tapped the map again. We use the rooftops. If he fights from a distance with Narukami, it'll be a problem, but if we control the high ground, we might be able to keep him off balance. We need to make him waste his shots. CARRERA cracked her knuckles. So, we wear him down, force him into close combat, and then rip him apart? ULTIMA smirked. More or less. But be careful, he's not called the Reaper for nothing. If we slip up even once. CARRERA rolled her eyes. Yeah, I get it. Don't get hit. Now let's go find this guy. The night air was crisp and carried the distant sounds of sirens as ULTIMA and CARRERA moved swiftly across the rooftops of the 15th Ward. Their movements were silent, like shadows gliding over the city. The streets below were eerily empty, save for the occasional car passing through. The CCG had undoubtedly locked down the area after their massacre, but that didn't matter now. After what felt like an eternity of searching, ULTIMA suddenly stopped, her sharp gaze locked onto a lone figure standing in an alley below. He was dressed in a pristine white coat, his silver hair illuminated under the pale moonlight. Kisho Arima. CARRERA grinned, her heart pounding with excitement. There he is. Alone, just like we wanted. ULTIMA narrowed her eyes. Too easy. He knows we're here. He's waiting for us. CARRERA huffed. Doesn't matter. Let's give him a proper welcome. Without another word, the two leapt from their vantage point, their kagoons flaring to life. ULTIMA's ukaku spread out behind her like demonic wings, while CARRERA's rinkaku twisted around her like serpents, pulsing with anticipation. As they descended, Arima didn't move an inch. Then, in a blur of movement, he pulled out his quinkwe. Narukami. A flash of lightning erupted from the weapon, crackling through the air as it streaked toward ULTIMA. Her instincts screamed at her, and she twisted her body just in time to avoid being vaporized by the sudden attack. The heat of the energy singed the side of her coat, and she landed gracefully on the pavement with a scowl. Damn it. He knew we were coming, ULTIMA growled. CARRERA landed beside her, glaring at Arima. TCH. And here I thought we'd at least get a surprise attack in. Arima's piercing blue eyes studied them with the calm detachment of a predator. Golden Reaper. Scarlet Executioner. You are both ranked SS. The CCG has classified you as a high-priority threat. I will now eliminate you. ULTIMA's grin returned. Hey, I'd like to see you try. Arima didn't waste another second. In an instant, he dashed forward, faster than either of them anticipated. Shit. CARRERA barely had time to react as Arima swung his quinkwe toward her. She blocked with her rinkaku, but the force behind his attack sent her skidding backward, her boots scraping against the pavement. ULTIMA retaliated by launching a barrage of Ukaku shards at Arima. The crystalline projectiles shot through the air like bullets, but Arima twisted his body with inhuman precision, dodging them effortlessly. He countered with another lightning strike from Narukami, forcing ULTIMA to leap onto a nearby rooftop. CARRERA growled, lunging forward with her Kagoon. "I'll smash that stupid calm face of yours." Arima shifted his stance and effortlessly parried her attack with his Quinkwe. "Your aggression is predictable." CARRERA's eyes widened as she felt a sharp pain in her side. Before she could even register what had happened, Arima had already repositioned himself behind her, his second Quinkwe, Yukimura 1/3, piercing through her side. "GHOUL." ULTIMA's heart pounded. "CARRERA." CARRERA grit her teeth and twisted her body violently, breaking free from the blade before it could cut deeper. Blood dripped onto the pavement, but her expression was one of exhilaration rather than pain. "Huh. Now this is a fight." ULTIMA clenched her fists. "Stick to the plan. We can't beat him in a straight fight." Arima's gaze flicked toward her. "You realize that too late." Before ULTIMA could react, Arima vanished from sight, reappearing above her with Narukami crackling with energy. He brought the weapon down in a devastating arc, and ULTIMA barely managed to dodge, feeling the sheer force of the attack shake the building she had been standing on moments ago. CARRERA rushed in again, this time attacking from multiple angles with her Rinkaku, but Arima danced between the strikes like a phantom. No wasted movements, no hesitation. He was precise, calculating, and relentless. "Damn it. He's too fast," CARRERA snarled. ULTIMA's mind raced. They needed an opening. They needed something, anything, to turn the tide. And then, she had an idea. Her golden eyes locked onto CARRERA's for a split second, and in that moment, CARRERA understood. It was time to change the game. Chapter 12, Clash of Titans. The atmosphere in the darkened alley of the 15th Ward was thick with tension, the faint glow of neon signs flickering against the damp pavement. ULTIMA and CARRERA stood poised, their golden irises gleaming in the dim light, muscles taut as they surveyed their opponent. Before them stood Kisho Arima, the Reaper of the CCG, his expression as unreadable as ever, his posture eerily relaxed despite the overwhelming danger posed by the two powerful ghouls before him. ULTIMA took a sharp breath, whispering to CARRERA, "We stick to the plan. Attack together, overwhelm him. We can't let him dictate the fight." CARRERA smirked, stretching her arms, her Rinkaku swaying behind her. "I was hoping you'd say that. Let's tear him apart." Without hesitation, the two lunged at Arima in perfect sync. ULTIMA's Ukaku fired off rapid, deadly projectiles while CARRERA's Rinkaku struck from multiple angles, creating an unrelenting storm of assaults. Arima deflected with precise movements, his Yukimura 1/3 spinning like a blur of silver light as he met each attack head-on. Sparks flew as steel clashed against Kagoon, the sound of battle reverberating through the empty alleyway. Arima sidestepped a lethal strike from CARRERA, twisting his body fluidly before slashing at ULTIMA with a swift, calculated motion. ULTIMA narrowly avoided the strike, flipping back mid-air, retaliating with another barrage of Ukaku shards. Arima blocked, using Yukimura 1/3 to deflect most of them, but the sheer volume forced him to maneuver defensively. CARRERA took advantage of the opening, her Rinkaku stretching out like a spear, aiming straight for his chest. At the last moment, Arima twisted, grabbing the appendage midair and yanking her forward. She reacted quickly, twisting her body to deliver a spinning kick aimed at his head, but he ducked, sweeping her legs out from under her. CARRERA caught herself just in time, flipping backward to regain her footing. "He's good," ULTIMA muttered, landing beside CARRERA, "annoyingly good." "Yeah, but so are we." CARRERA grinned, licking a streak of blood off her lip. "Let's up the tempo." They charged again, their movements perfectly synchronized. ULTIMA feinted to the left, her Ukaku wings glowing ominously before she released another deadly burst of shards. Arima moved to deflect, just as CARRERA lunged from the right, her Rinkaku coming down like a hammer. Forced to split his attention, Arima expertly maneuvered, barely avoiding CARRERA's strike before countering with a rapid thrust of Yukimura 1/3, aiming for ULTIMA's chest. ULTIMA twisted midair, just evading the deadly blow. She retaliated with a quick slash from her Kagoon, grazing Arima's arm, drawing the first blood of the battle. CARRERA took this as her cue, launching herself at him, aiming to capitalize on the opening. Their coordinated strikes forced Arima on the defensive, the balance of the battle shifting slightly in their favor. For the first time in the fight, Arima frowned. A flicker of recognition crossed his usually impassive face. He knew he had underestimated them. Then, in one fluid motion, he sheathed Yukimura 1/3 and reached for another weapon. The moment Ultima and Carrera saw the metallic shine of IXA, they knew the fight had just entered a new stage. Shit, Carrera muttered, immediately taking a step back. That's not good. Ultima clicked her tongue. No kidding, stay sharp. Arima wasted no time. With a single movement, he activated IXA, sending a piercing energy shot toward Carrera. She barely dodged, the beam grazing past her shoulder, searing through flesh. Ultima rushed in, trying to flank him, but Arima predicted her movement, shifting his stance and countering with a lightning-fast stab aimed at her abdomen. Ultima barely parried, her Ukaku blades clashing violently with IXA, the force sending shockwaves through the air. Carrera, recovering from the blast, took advantage of Arima's engagement with Ultima, lunging in with all her strength, her Rinkaku lashing out like a whip. For a brief moment, it seemed as though their combined force was enough to corner him. Then, with terrifying efficiency, Arima maneuvered between their attacks, sidestepping Ultima's slash, catching Carrera's Rinkaku with IXA, and in a split second, driving the Quinkwe straight into Carrera's stomach. The impact was brutal. Carrera gasped, blood spilling from her lips as the cold steel pierced through her. Her body tensed, her vision blurring from the pain. Carrera! Ultima screamed, lunging at Arima in a blind fury. But Arima was already moving. He yanked his Quinkwe free from Carrera, letting her crumple to the ground before shifting his full focus to Ultima. Ultima attacked with reckless abandon, her Ukaku flaring wildly, her strikes faster, sharper. Yet Arima remained untouchable. He sidestepped, parried, countered. Within moments, he closed the gap, driving a powerful kick into Ultima's torso, sending her crashing into a concrete wall. She coughed violently, blood dripping down her chin as she struggled to push herself up. Arima stood over her, expression unreadable. IXA gleamed in the dim light, poised for the final blow. Then, a blur of motion. A monstrous pressure filled the air. Ito. Her Kakuja form descended like a shadow of death, her grotesque clawed appendages crashing down between Ultima and Arima, blocking the strike. The sheer force of her landing cracked the pavement, sending dust and debris flying. That's enough, Eto's distorted voice growled, her single eye gleaming from beneath her mask. Without waiting for a response, she scooped up Ultima and Carrera, her Kakuja arms wrapping around them protectively before leaping backward, launching herself onto a nearby rooftop. Arima remained still, watching them retreat, making no move to follow. Ultima, despite her injuries, managed a weak smirk. We almost had him. Carrera coughed, still clutching her wound. Yeah, almost. Ito huffed, tightening her grip on them. Idiots. You were never going to win. Not against him, not yet. Ultima closed her eyes, her body aching. She hated admitting it, but Ito was right. They had underestimated Arima, but this wasn't the end. Not by a long shot. Chapter 13. The Path to Power. Ultima and Carrera sat in their shared quarters within the Aogiri tree's hidden base, their bodies still aching from their brutal encounter with Arima. Though their wounds had mostly healed thanks to their regenerative abilities, the humiliation of their near defeat lingered far longer than the physical pain. The realization that they were not yet strong enough gnawed at them. Carrera stretched, wincing slightly as the remnants of Arima's attack pulsed through her muscles. Damn it, she muttered. That bastard was faster than I thought. I knew he was strong, but he made us look like amateurs. Ultima, lying on her back with one arm draped over her eyes, sighed. I hate to admit it, but we were completely outmatched. If Ito hadn't stepped in, we'd be dead. Carrera leaned forward, fire burning in her blue irises. We need to get stronger, way stronger. Ultima removed her arm from her face and sat up, her mind already racing through possibilities. There has to be a way. We can't just train normally, we need something more. Carrera smirked. You thinking what I'm thinking? Ultima returned the smirk. Kakuja. A moment of silence hung in the air between them before Carrera grinned. Damn right. We need a Kakuja. That's the only way we'll be able to match someone like Arima. Ultima nodded. The problem is getting one. We need to consume a lot of ghouls. The more powerful the better. Carrera tapped her chin, deep in thought. We could start hunting in the nearby wards, find strong ghouls, and take them down. Ultima leaned forward, her eyes sharp with determination. We need to be smart about this. If we just go on a killing spree, the CCG will be on our tails again. We should target rogue ghouls, ones that aren't aligned with anyone. Carrera chuckled. That's true, but let's be real, we'll attract attention no matter what. Might as well go big. Ultima sighed, shaking her head. You're reckless, but you're not wrong. They sat in silence for a moment before Carrera spoke again. So, where do we start? Ultima crossed her arms, thinking. The 16th Ward. It has a lot of independent ghouls, and it's far enough from here that it won't bring trouble to Augiri. Carrera stood up and stretched. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go tell Ito we're heading out. The two of them made their way through the dimly lit corridors of the base until they reached Ito's chambers. The Augiri leader was lounging in her chair, flipping through a book when she noticed their presence. She glanced up and grinned. Well, look who's up and about. I assume you're not here for small talk. Ultima stepped forward. We're leaving the base for a while. We need to get stronger. Ito tilted her head. And how do you plan on doing that? Carrera smirked. By getting a Kakuja. Ito let out a soft chuckle. Ambitious. Dangerous. I like it. But you two do realize that getting a Kakuja isn't just about eating ghouls, right? It takes time for your body to adapt. Ultima nodded. We know. But we don't have the luxury of waiting. If we're going to take on Arima again, we need power now. Ito leaned back, watching them with amusement. You're determined, I'll give you that. Fine. Go. But don't die. I'd rather not have to replace you two. Carrera grinned. Don't worry, we'll be back stronger than ever. Ito's grin widened. I'll hold you to that. With that, Ultima and Carrera left the base, making their way toward the 16th Ward under the cover of night. The streets were quiet, but their sharp senses picked up the faint presence of other ghouls lurking in the shadows. Carrera cracked her knuckles. Time to hunt. Ultima smirked. Let's make this quick. Their path to power had begun. Chapter 14. The Hunt for Power. The night was still, a thick veil of darkness covering the 16th Ward. The occasional neon flicker of rundown signs gave the streets an eerie glow, but the silence was only temporary. Ultima and Carrera stood on a rooftop, peering down at the dimly lit warehouse below. This was where the local ghouls gathered, 14 of them, a mix of ranks, none strong enough to pose a serious threat. This was the perfect hunting ground. Carrera stretched her arms, cracking her neck. So, we just bust in and start tearing them apart? Or do we give them a little show first? Her grin was wicked, her golden eyes gleaming in the moonlight. Ultima chuckled, her tone playful yet laced with cruel intent. We don't need a show. We just need to eat. But, she leaned over the edge, watching as the ghouls began gathering inside the warehouse. Maybe a little intimidation wouldn't hurt. Let's make them understand true fear before we devour them. The ghouls below were unsuspecting, conversing in low tones. A tall man, likely one of the rank A ghouls, was speaking. The CCG has been increasing patrols. We need to be careful. If we stay organized, we won't be picked off like the others. A female ghoul scoffed. As long as we stay in numbers, we'll be fine. We're not weaklings. Ultima smirked at the irony of the statement. Time to prove them wrong. With no warning, the two leapt from their rooftop perch, crashing through the warehouse's large, dust-covered windows. Shards of glass rained down as the gathered ghouls scrambled back, eyes wide with shock. Carrera landed first, her cocoon already unfurling behind her in a terrifying display of crimson and black tendrils. Ultima followed, her own cocoon emerging in a controlled, deliberate motion, exuding an overwhelming pressure that filled the room. Well, Carrera teased, placing her hands on her hips. You guys sure do love talking big. But look at you now, shaking in your boots. One of the rank B ghouls snarled, trying to mask his fear. Who the hell are you? You think you can just waltz in here and... Ultima was on him before he could finish his sentence, her speed inhuman. In a blur of motion, she drove her hand straight through his stomach, lifting him off the ground. He choked, blood spilling from his mouth as he struggled feebly. You were saying? Ultima purred, before crushing his torso with a single, merciless squeeze. His body crumpled, lifeless, as she tossed him aside like garbage. The room exploded into chaos. The remaining ghouls lunged at them in desperation. A rank A ghoul charged at Carrera, unleashing his cocoon in a flurry of sharpened appendages. She laughed, easily weaving through his attacks. Oh, come on, is that all? With a single fluid motion, She severed his cocoon with a swipe of her own, sending him staggering back in shock. Before he could react, she drove her fist into his chest, sending him flying into the far wall with a sickening crunch. Meanwhile, Ultima faced down 3 ghouls at once. They attacked in tandem, hoping to overwhelm her. She moved like a shadow, dodging every strike with minimal effort. One of them managed to get close enough to swipe at her face, but she caught his wrist mid-motion. Her grip tightened. Nice try. With a sharp twist, she snapped his arm backward, eliciting a blood-curdling scream. Then, with a swift motion, she decapitated him with her hand. The remaining ghouls hesitated. Fear was evident in their eyes. Monsters. One of them whispered, voice trembling. Carrera smirked. You finally figured it out? Took you long enough. One by one, the ghouls fell, their strength nowhere near enough to compete with the 2 predators. Blood splattered the floor, the scent intoxicating. By the end of it, only 1 ghoul remained. A young female of rank C, trembling as Ultima pinned her down with her foot. Please. The girl whimpered, tears streaming down her face. Ultima tilted her head. No, with that, she sank her teeth into the girl's throat, savoring the taste as she devoured her alive. The ghouls' screams echoed through the warehouse, only to be drowned out by the grotesque sounds of flesh being torn apart. When it was over, Carrera wiped her mouth, satisfied. That was fun, but we need more. Ultima nodded, licking the blood from her fingers. Agreed. This is just the beginning. Their moment of satisfaction was short-lived. A sudden noise outside caught their attention. Sirens. The CCG was on their way. TCH, looks like we overstayed our welcome, Carrera muttered. Ultima sighed dramatically. Oh no, whatever shall we do? She then smirked. Let's move. 17th Ward should have more prey. Without another word, the 2 disappeared into the night, leaving behind nothing but carnage. So I have a question. Do you guys want to read the fights with the ghouls to them obtain the Kakuja, or you guys want a time skip of a month and they will already have obtained the Kakuja? Chapter 15. The awakening of a Kakuja. A month had passed since their last hunt, and in that time, Ultima and Carrera had left a trail of devastation across multiple wards. From the 17th to the 5th, the 4th, and finally settling in the brutal 14th ward, they had devoured approximately 60 ghouls, consuming their flesh in a relentless pursuit of power. The 14th ward proved to be the most chaotic of them all. Unlike the other districts where ghouls were merely preying on humans, this ward was infested with ghouls who indulged in cannibalism just like them. It was a place where only the strongest survived, and the weak were reduced to mere scraps. Sitting atop an abandoned building overlooking a blood-stained alley, Ultima stretched her arms, smirking at the lingering scent of fresh carnage in the air. You know, she said, glancing at Carrera, this place isn't half bad. Feels like home. Carrera chuckled, leaning back against a rusted metal pipe. Yeah, but it's getting a little boring. These weaklings barely put up a fight. She licked her fingers, still coated in the blood of their last prey. We need something better. Stronger. Something that actually pushes us to the edge. Before Ultima could respond, the scent of approaching ghouls filled the air. She turned her head, her golden eyes gleaming in the dim light of the city. Speak of another's weaklings, she murmured, a grin spreading across her face. From the shadows, 4 ghouls emerged. Their expressions were predatory, filled with hunger and anticipation. 2 of them exuded a dangerous aura, their rank a status evident in the confidence with which they carried themselves. The other 2, though ranked B, stood tall, unwilling to back down. Looks like they think they can devour us, Carrera said with a mocking tilt of her head. One of the rank A ghouls stepped forward, his cocoon slithering behind him. You 2 have been causing quite a stir. Killing off the weak and devouring them like their cattle. That's our job. His grin was filled with malice. Ultima scoffed. You really think you can do anything about it? She tapped her foot impatiently. How about we cut the chit-chat? You guys are just another meal to us. As soon as the words left her mouth, Ultima activated her Ukaku. Purple, crystalline wings erupted from her back, pulsing with a sinister energy. Carrera, grinning wildly, activated her Rinkaku, black tendrils wrapping around her arms like whips. However, something was different this time. Their cocoon didn't just manifest as before, it began to shift, twisting unnaturally around their bodies. The cells of the devoured ghouls finally responded. Their flesh burned with an intoxicating heat as their cocoon morphed, hardening into something far beyond what they had known. Ultima looked down at herself, her breath hitching in excitement. "Carrera," she murmured, flexing her fingers. "I think we did it." Carrera grinned wildly, feeling the power coursing through her body. "Kakuja," she whispered. Ultima's Kakuja description. Ultima's Kakuja formed into a dark, twisted armor that encased her arms, shoulders, and parts of her legs. Her once crystalline Ukaku wings became jagged, resembling a blackened exoskeleton with sharp, protruding spikes. Her hands were covered in thick, claw-like gauntlets that pulsed with energy. A grotesque mask formed over the lower half of her face, resembling the maw of a beast with elongated fangs. Her golden eyes gleamed through the darkness, burning with sadistic pleasure. Carrera's Kakuja description. Carrera's Kakuja took on a more monstrous form. Her rinkaku extended and twisted around her torso, forming a spine-like armor that ran down her back. Her arms were covered in segmented plates of hardened kagoon, each lined with serrated edges. Her mask was skeletal, with jagged, horn-like protrusions extending from the sides. Her tendrils pulsed, thickened by the overwhelming strength of her Kakuja. The four ghouls froze, their initial confidence wavering as they realized the monsters they were facing. Ultima cracked her neck. "Well, since we finally got our Kakujas, let's see how well they work," she said with a grin. Carrera laughed, stepping forward. "You four should feel honored," she taunted. "You get to be our first test subjects." The battle that followed was nothing short of a massacre. Ultima lunged forward at blinding speed, her armored claws slicing clean through one of the rank B ghouls before he could even react. His body split in half, blood splattering against the walls as his final scream was cut short. Carrera's tendrils whipped forward, impaling another ghoul through the chest before hoisting him into the air. With a flick of her wrist, she slammed him into the ground, his skull shattering on impact. The two Ranka ghouls tried to fight back, but their attacks barely scratched the Kakuja armor. One of them managed to land a desperate blow on Ultima's shoulder, but she didn't even flinch. Instead, she grabbed his arm and twisted it until the bone snapped like a twig. He screamed, only for her to silence him by plunging her claw straight through his throat. The last remaining ghoul, terrified beyond belief, tried to run. But Ultima caught him, pinning him beneath her foot. "Oh no, you're not getting away," she cooed. "I want to play with you for a little longer." The next 10 minutes were filled with screams that echoed through the desolate streets of the 14th Ward. Ultima took her time, savoring every moment as she broke the ghoul piece by piece, ensuring he felt every bit of agony before she finally reached into his chest, ripped out his heart, and devoured it in front of his dying eyes. Carrera wiped the blood from her face, sighing in satisfaction. "That was fun," she said, stretching, "but I think we've played around long enough." Ultima tossed the corpse aside, licking her lips. "Yeah. I think it's about time we head back to Aogiri. Now that we have these," she gestured to their Kakujas, "we're finally ready." The two of them turned away from the carnage, disappearing into the shadows, leaving behind only the mutilated remains of their prey as a testament to their evolution. Chapter 16. CCG Investigation. The Office of the Commission of Counter-Ghoul, CCG, was shrouded in an air of tension. A group of senior investigators sat around a dimly lit conference table, reports and photos scattered before them. The latest string of ghoul-on-ghoul cannibalism cases had shaken the organization, and the sheer brutality of the incidents was raising alarms. What had once been isolated attacks had escalated into a series of massacres across multiple wards, with dozens of ghouls devoured down to the bone. The perpetrators, were no longer a mystery. The only question left was, when would they strike next? Special Class Investigator Shinohara adjusted his glasses, flipping through the files once more. "We've compiled all the evidence from the past month. The 17th Ward, the 5th, the 4th, and most recently, the 14th, 60 confirmed victims. Not just random ghouls. These were organized groups, some even known for preying on their own kind. But none of them stood a chance. That's because our suspects are monsters among monsters." Kosuke Hoji leaned forward, tapping on an image displayed on the monitor at the front of the room. "The massacre at the 16th Ward's ghoul hideout was our biggest lead. The eyewitness reports, along with our own surveillance, confirmed the presence of two individuals. We believe these two are responsible for every attack that followed." Takizawa, a rank 2 investigator, crossed his arms. "And you're sure it's them? The ones from the Arima incident?" "There's no doubt." Hoji pulled up another set of images, showing the aftermath of a brutal battle that had taken place weeks earlier. Corpses of elite CCG investigators littered the ground, their quinks shattered, their armor torn apart like paper. We already knew they were dangerous after they wiped out Investigator Akihiro's squad, but their fight against Arima proved it beyond question. No ordinary ghouls could have lasted that long against the Reaper himself and lived to tell the tale. Another investigator, Kyoko Ora, frowned. Lived, yes. But barely. If Arima hadn't been interrupted, they would have died that night. The question is, how have they grown since then? That's what worries me. Shinohara exhaled, rubbing his temples. We initially classified them as S-rated threats. After the Arima battle, they were upgraded to SS. But now, their actions over the past month suggest they've become even stronger. The sheer efficiency in which they've been wiping out ghouls points to one thing. They've achieved Kakuja. Silence fell over the room. The idea of two SS-rated ghouls obtaining Kakuja, especially ones with a track record like these two, was unsettling. Hoji eventually broke the silence. We've seen their feeding patterns. Every location they strike, they leave nothing behind. They're not just killing for survival. They're actively seeking out powerful ghouls and consuming them. This is deliberate. And it's working. If they have indeed awakened their Kakuja, we may no longer be dealing with SS-rated threats. They might very well be climbing into SSS territory. Takizawa let out a low whistle. Fantastic. Just what we needed, another pair of nightmares running around. Shinohara ignored him, instead pointing at the monitor again. We've been tracking their movements closely. They don't linger in one place for long, but the pattern suggests they're making their way back to the 11th ward. The Aogiri tree base. They think they're ready to return to Aogiri after their little power trip, Kyoko muttered. If we want to take them out, that might be our best chance. Hoji nodded. Agreed. However, we need to remember something important. These aren't just any ghouls. They're brutal, intelligent, and completely merciless. They tore through entire squads of our investigators and fought Arima to a standstill before escaping. If we underestimate them, we will lose more people. Shinohara stood up, his gaze sweeping across the room. From now on, they will be officially recognized as high-priority targets. We've given them codenames based on their attack patterns and appearances. He clicked a remote, changing the display on the monitor. Two dark silhouettes appeared on the screen, both exuding an aura of pure menace. The one with golden eyes and the twisted sense of humor, Golden Reaper. The other, with her sheer destructive power, Scarlet Executioner. Takizawa whistled again. Damn, even their names sound terrifying. Shinohara's expression hardened. And together, they've earned a title fitting for their reign of terror, Twin Calamities. Silence filled the room once more as everyone processed the weight of that name. It wasn't just an acknowledgement of their strength. It was an omen of the devastation they would bring if they weren't stopped soon. After a long pause, Hoji stood. We need to act before they reach Aogiri. If they fully integrate their Kakuja and return to a force like Aogiri Tree, they'll become unstoppable. We must prepare for immediate deployment. Shinohara nodded in agreement. Send word to Arima. He needs to know. If anyone can put an end to this, it's him. As the investigators left the room, the weight of the task ahead settled upon them. The hunt for the Twin Calamities had officially begun. Chapter 17. CCG Ambush. A heavy silence hung in the air as ULTIMA and CARRERA sprinted through the darkened streets of the 12th ward. The neon lights flickered above them, the dim glow casting long shadows on the cracked pavement. Their destination was clear, the Aogiri Tree's base in the 11th ward. They had spent a month tearing through ghouls, devouring their kin, growing stronger, and now, with their Kakuja awakened, they were ready to return. But fate had other plans. A silver blur shot through the darkness, slicing through the wind with lethal precision. Instinct screamed at them. Both ULTIMA and CARRERA twisted their bodies midair, evading the incoming attack just in time. The projectile embedded itself into the pavement where they had stood moments ago, sending a shockwave through the street. A quinkwe. Their eyes darted to the rooftops, then to the shadows around them. Then, one by one, figures emerged. Figures draped in black trench coats, wearing the emblem of the CCG. CARRERA clicked her tongue, her blue eyes narrowing. TCH. Looks like the pigeons finally caught our scent. ULTIMA smirked, her golden gaze sweeping over their would-be executioners. Oh. And here I thought we'd at least make it back to base before the real fun started. The leader of the group, a tall and imposing man in heavy armor, stepped forward. Chief of Division 1, Kasuga Mado's colleague, the veteran of countless battles, Kyoko Ora. Her cold eyes locked onto the two ghouls, quinquay in hand. Golden Reaper. Scarlet Executioner, she said, her voice devoid of emotion. We knew it was only a matter of time before you'd return. This is as far as you go. Beside her, the equally formidable Kiyoshi Shinohara tightened his grip on his formidable quinquay, Arata Prota. You've left a trail of corpses across the city. Ghouls and humans alike. The CCG cannot allow you to continue. Standing behind them were the rest of the squad, Kosuke Hoji, an associate special investigator. Two senior investigators, veterans who had seen their fair share of ghoul exterminations. Four first-class investigators, skilled and disciplined, their hands gripping their weapons tightly. Two second-class investigators, including the ambitious Takizawa Sato. And, at the very back, a wild card, a grinning white-haired youth in a mismatched suit, idly chewing on a piece of gum. Juzu Suzuya. Carrera's grin widened, her fingers twitching in excitement. Oh, they brought the whole damn circus. Ultima giggled, stretching her arms above her head, and we're the main attraction, how flattering. Hoji adjusted his glasses, his expression unreadable. We've studied your combat patterns. We know how you fight. You won't be escaping. Ultima tilted her head. Oh, then you must know that we don't run, we devour. Without another word, the battle erupted. Carrera launched forward, her rinkaku flashing out like a serpent, striking toward Kyoko Ora. The investigator, unfazed, deflected the attack with her quinquay, countering with a slash that forced Carrera to twist away. Ultima, meanwhile, soared into the air, her ukaku wings forming a barrage of deadly projectiles that rained down upon the CCG forces. The first-class investigators scrambled for cover, but two were too slow. Screams echoed as their bodies were torn apart by the hailstorm of death. TCH, Shinohara growled, charging at Ultima with a burst of speed, his Arata Prota enhancing his mobility. Ultima barely had time to dodge as the quinquay cleaved through the air where she had been. She giggled, her sharp teeth flashing. Oh, so fast, but can you keep up? Carrera, meanwhile, focused on the remaining first-class investigators. Weak, she muttered, her rinkaku stabbing through one of their chests, lifting him into the air before slamming him into the pavement. Blood splattered as she turned to the next. Takizawa's face was pale, but he gritted his teeth, swinging his quinquay in desperation. Carrera caught the blade with her bare hand, the weapon slicing into her flesh but failing to make her flinch. Nice try, little birdie, she whispered before driving her rinkaku straight through his stomach. Takizawa let out a gurgled cry as Carrera tossed him aside like a broken doll. But before she could finish him, a blade slashed at her from behind. Juzu Suzuya. The white-haired investigator's face was alight with excitement, his stitches stretching as he grinned. Hee, you're strong. This is gonna be fun. Carrera's grin matched his. Oh, I like you. Let's play, little rabbit. Ultima, meanwhile, found herself locked in combat with both Shinohara and Ora, their coordination flawless. No matter how she attacked, they countered in sync. And when Hoji joined the fray, the pressure became overwhelming. Then, it happened. A feint from Shinohara forced Ultima back. Ora seized the opportunity, her quinquay slashing through Ultima's midsection, drawing a spray of blackened blood. Before she could recover, Hoji struck from behind, sending her crashing into a wall. Carrera saw it too late. A strike from Shinohara's Arata Prota slammed into her side, shattering bones. She coughed up blood, stumbling. Juzu capitalized on the opening, slicing deep into her leg, forcing her to one knee. For the first time in a long while, they were being pushed back. Ultima groaned, pushing herself up, her golden eyes burning with fury. Carrera spat blood, shaking with rage. No more games. Their kagoon pulsed, the flesh writhing. Their bodies trembled as an unfamiliar power surged through them, a power they had yet to fully unleash. Their kakujas. The air grew thick, heavy with an ominous energy. The investigators tensed, sensing the shift. The battlefield fell silent for just a moment, filled only with the sound of shifting flesh and the low, guttural laughter of two creatures embracing their monstrous evolution. Then, with a single chilling breath, Ultima whispered, "Let's show them what real nightmares look like." And the transformation began. Chapter 18, Kakujas vs. CCG. Ultima and Carrera stood amidst the chaos, their bodies now encased in their formidable Kakuja forms. Their grotesque yet powerful mutations pulsed with raw energy, an overwhelming aura of hunger and dominance radiating from them. Shinohara, Hoji, Kyoko Ora, and the remaining investigators braced themselves as they faced the monstrous evolution of the twin calamities. The battlefield was stained with blood and littered with the corpses of fallen investigators. Takizawa lay gasping for air, his body barely holding together. Juzu Suzuya, gripping his knife's quinks, wore a rare expression of tension. The air crackled with the sheer malevolence exuding from Ultima and Carrera. Shinohara, maintaining his composure, muttered, "Damn it. They've evolved far beyond our expectations. This isn't just a Kakuja transformation. They've been feeding extensively. Their RC levels must be off the charts." Hoji gritted his teeth. "We underestimated them. We need a new strategy, now." Before any further coordination could take place, Ultima lunged forward, a blur of motion enhanced by her Ukaku Kakuja. Her wings, now armored and jagged, unleashed a barrage of crystalline projectiles at the investigators. Ora barely dodged in time, but one of the shards grazed her shoulder, slicing through her armor like paper. "TCH, Ora winced, pressing a hand to her wound. Carrera, her Rinkaku Kakuja morphing into a thick, monstrous exoskeleton, slammed her appendages into the ground, causing a shockwave that sent debris flying. She moved like a juggernaut, her tentacle-like cocoon slicing through the air with terrifying speed. Juzu, always the daredevil, leapt into action, flipping through the air and aiming for Ultima's blind spot. "Hey, let's see how fast you are now," he grinned as he swung his quinks in an arc toward her neck. Ultima smirked. "Fool." With inhuman reflexes, she twisted her body midair and caught Juzu's weapon between two massive cocoon claws. Before he could react, she hurled him like a ragdoll straight into Hoji, sending them both crashing against the wreckage of a demolished building. "Juzu, Hoji," Shinohara shouted, but he had no time to worry. Carrera was already upon him, her Kakuja-covered fist swinging towards his head. He barely managed to block with his Arata armor, but the force sent him skidding backward. Ora and the other investigators attempted to regroup, launching coordinated attacks. Bullets laced with RC suppressant whizzed through the air, and a barrage of quinks aimed at Ultima and Carrera. Yet, their Kakuja armor absorbed most of the impact. "They're just toying with us," Hoji muttered, wiping blood from his mouth as he struggled to stand. "This is bad, really bad." Ultima tilted her head. "Are you done already? I thought you humans were supposed to be resilient." Carrera laughed darkly. "Pathetic, maybe we should let you run, but where's the fun in that?" Without warning, Ultima darted toward the remaining first-class investigator, who barely had time to react before her elongated Kakuja claws skewered him through the abdomen. His scream was cut short as she ripped him apart, blood splattering across the battlefield. "Another one down," she sighed in mock disappointment. The remaining second-class investigator trembled, stepping backward. Monsters." Carrera grinned, her fanged mouth widening. "You finally get it? It took you long enough." She moved in a blur, her Rinkaku appendages piercing through the last lower-ranked investigator. She lifted his twitching body into the air before casually snapping him in half. Blood dripped from her tendrils as she licked her lips. The battlefield now only held Shinohara, Ora, Hoji, Juzu, and a barely breathing Takizawa. The odds were overwhelmingly against them. Shinohara clenched his fists. "Ora, Hoji, we need to retreat." Ora's eyes widened. "We can't just let them, we have no choice," he cut in, his voice grim. "We're outmatched. If we stay, we die." Juzu wiped a smear of blood from his face and giggled. "Ah. And here I thought we'd have more fun." Ultima and Carrera exchanged a glance, sensing the shift in the battle. Ultima smirked. "Running away? How disappointing." Carrera sighed dramatically. "Should we chase them? It'd be fun." Ultima glanced toward the pile of bodies. "No, we've already won. Let's eat and go back to Aogiri." Shinohara took the opportunity. "Move," he ordered, grabbing Takizawa and hoisting him onto his shoulder as the remaining investigators fell back. Ultima and Carrera watched as their prey retreated, but neither pursued. Instead, they turned to the remains of the fallen investigators. Without hesitation, they began devouring the corpses, their hunger insatiable. As they feasted, Carrera chuckled. "This is too easy. Humans are nothing but food." Ultima licked her lips. "And the more we eat, the stronger we become." With their hunger satisfied, they turned towards the direction of the 11th Ward. "Let's go," Ultima said. Augiri is waiting. Carrera smirked. And when we return, we'll be even stronger. With that, the twin calamities disappeared into the shadows, leaving behind a battlefield soaked in blood and despair. Chapter 19. Return of the twin calamities. Ultima and Carrera moved swiftly through the ruined streets of the 11th Ward. Their cocoon no longer active, but their bodies still radiating the residual energy of their intense battle against the CCG investigators. The air was thick with the scent of blood, and the distant echoes of the city's night carried an eerie silence, only broken by the occasional sound of crumbling debris. After a month of relentless hunting, consuming dozens of ghouls, and facing off against powerful adversaries, they had finally returned to the base of the Augiri tree. Their bodies were stronger than ever, their instincts sharper, and most importantly, they had achieved what they had set out to do. They had obtained their kakujas. The two ghouls arrived at the hidden entrance to the Augiri base, weaving through the ruins and passing by stationed sentries. Some of the lower-ranked Augiri ghouls flinched at their presence, instinctively recognizing the overwhelming aura of two beings who had reached a new level of power. Their golden and blue eyes gleamed with a predatory edge, a testament to the countless battles they had fought and won. Upon entering the building complex, they wasted no time. Their goal was clear: to report their success directly to Ito. The narrow corridors of the base carried an air of tension, with ghouls whispering among themselves as Ultima and Carrera passed. Some stepped aside, recognizing their rank, while others watched with curiosity, sensing something different about them. When they finally arrived at Edo's chamber, the air inside the room was heavy with authority. The infamous one-eyed owl sat comfortably, her ever-mischievous grin in place, her piercing green eyes scanning them with an unreadable expression. Standing beside her were Iato Kirishima and Tatara, two of Augiri's top fighters. Ultima smirked as she stepped forward, her golden eyes locked onto Ito. "We've returned," she said, her voice carrying a dangerous edge, "and we have what we set out to get." Carrera, leaning against the wall with her usual delinquent demeanor, crossed her arms. "Took a bit longer than expected," she admitted with a toothy grin, "but we had plenty of fun along the way." Ito tilted her head, her amusement evident. "Oh, so, you managed to obtain your kakujas?" Her voice held a knowing tone, as if she had expected nothing less. Tatara's usually impassive face twitched slightly, his red eyes narrowing as he observed them carefully. "You obtained a kakuja in just 1 month?" There was skepticism in his tone, but also a hint of interest. Kakuja evolution was not something easily achieved, and for two ghouls to develop it within such a short span was nearly unheard of. Ayato scoffed. "I find that hard to believe." His sharp gaze shifted between Ultima and Carrera. "I don't doubt that you two are strong, but obtaining a kakuja isn't something just anyone can do. The amount of ghouls you'd have to consume. The risk of losing yourself to insanity." Ultima chuckled darkly, stepping closer to him. "Do you really think we'd return empty-handed?" She let her aura flare for just a moment, the overwhelming presence of her newly developed kakuja causing a suffocating pressure in the room. "Would you like a demonstration?" Ayato instinctively tensed, his fingers twitching as if prepared to summon his kagoon. However, Ito raised a hand, stopping any further provocation. "There's no need for that," she said, her grin widening. "I believe you." Carrera let out a dramatic sigh. "Well, that's a shame. I was hoping we'd get to show off a little." Ito leaned forward, resting her chin on her hand. "Tell me, then, how was it? What did it feel like?" Ultima's smirk widened, recalling the moment her body transformed. "It was exhilarating," she admitted. "Like tapping into something primal. Something far beyond what we were before." Carrera nodded in agreement. It was like shedding an old skin and stepping into something more complete. Her fingers twitched as she recalled the sensation of her reinforced kagoon wrapping around her body. And the power, it's addicting. Tatara crossed his arms, his sharp gaze still filled with skepticism. "Then show us. Prove that you've truly obtained your kakuja." Ultima and Carrera exchanged glances before nodding. In an instant, their kakujas began to manifest. Ultima's once crystalline ukaku wings twisted into a jagged, blackened exoskeleton, spikes protruding as her arms became encased in clawed gauntlets. The grotesque mask formed over her lower face, resembling the maw of a beast with elongated fangs. Her golden eyes gleamed through the darkness, radiating a sadistic hunger. Carrera's transformation was equally terrifying. Her rinkaku extended and twisted around her torso, forming a hardened, spine-like armor. Her skeletal mask had jagged, horn-like protrusions, and her segmented kagoon pulsed with raw energy, each lined with serrated edges, ready to tear through flesh with ease. The room was filled with an oppressive pressure as the two displayed their new forms, their kakujas exuding a chilling aura. Even the experienced Tatara narrowed his eyes, and Ayato found himself momentarily speechless. Ito, however, simply laughed. Magnificent, she mused, her eyes glinting with something akin to excitement. You've truly become monsters worth fearing. Tatara nodded slowly, his skepticism fading. It's impressive. Ayato clicked his tongue, clearly still annoyed but unable to deny what he was seeing. Fine. I'll admit it. You two really did it. Ultima let out a satisfied hum as she allowed her kakuja to recede. We're just getting started, she murmured. This is only the beginning. Carrera grinned as she stretched, her kakuja dissolving as well. Exactly. And now that we've gotten stronger, I'm sure things are about to get a lot more interesting. Ito nodded in approval. Indeed. With your new strength, you'll be of even greater use to Aogiri. She leaned back, resting her arms behind her head. And I have a feeling you'll get plenty of opportunities to put that power to the test very soon. Ultima and Carrera exchanged a glance, their excitement palpable. After all, they weren't just satisfied with growing stronger. They wanted to push their limits even further, to revel in the chaos that awaited them. Chapter 20. A new one-eyed ghoul. The hideout of Aogiri Tree was buzzing with hushed conversations and the occasional clatter of footsteps echoing through the dimly lit corridors. Ultima and Carrera had settled into a comfortable lull after their triumphant return, relishing in the sense of accomplishment from obtaining their kakujas. However, the calm was soon disrupted by a murmur rippling through the base. Ultima leaned lazily against a cold stone wall, her golden eyes flickering with curiosity as she caught wind of the rumor. Carrera, standing beside her with arms crossed, exhaled sharply. What's this about Ayato and Yamori? Apparently, they went to Anteku and captured a ghoul, Ultima replied, stretching her arms over her head, but no one's saying who. Ha! Another unlucky bastard dragged into Yamori's games, Carrera scoffed, cracking her knuckles. I'd bet my life savings he's already broken a few bones. Ultima mused, her eyes narrowing slightly. Let's go check this out. With that, the two made their way toward the throne room, where the highest-ranking Aogiri members typically convened. The air grew thick with an ominous presence as they approached, the eerie stillness amplifying the anticipation curling in their chests. Upon stepping inside, they found the usual figures. Tatara sat stiffly in an ornate chair, feigning his authority as leader. Of course, everyone within Aogiri knew that he answered to someone far greater. However, only a select few knew exactly who that was: Carrera, Ultima, Ayato, and Noro. The real puppet master sat on the floor just beside the throne, a mischievous glint in her singular green eye. Ito. Ultima and Carrera immediately made their way over, plopping down beside her without hesitation. Noro loomed silently nearby, his featureless mask concealing whatever thoughts he might have had. Tatara's crimson gaze flicked toward them briefly before returning to the main doors. They should be arriving soon. True to his words, heavy footsteps soon resonated through the halls. The doors creaked open, and three figures entered: Ayato, walking with an air of casual arrogance; Yamori, whose towering form exuded sheer brutality; and between them, a single black-haired ghoul, his posture slumped, hands bound. His face was downcast, but the faintest tremor in his frame betrayed the turmoil within him. Ultima's gaze flickered with interest. This the one? Ayato wordlessly detached himself from the group and slumped into a chair, seemingly uninterested. Yamori, however, remained standing, his eyes gleaming with predatory delight. Tatara rose from his seat, the weight of his presence immediately thickening the atmosphere. He strode forward, his armored fist lashing out without warning, driving into the captive's stomach with a force that sent him reeling. A choked gasp tore from his lips as he crumpled, his single kakugan flickering to life involuntarily. Tatara's expression was unreadable as he studied the ghoul before him. Then, something seemed to click. HMPH, I see. Ultima's brow arched. See what? Tatara took a step back, his gaze settling on the trembling figure at his feet. Rise is dead. The words were spoken with such certainty that silence blanketed the room. Even Carrera's typical smirk faded slightly. Ultima, however, hummed, her interest piqued. And how do you figure that out? Tatara regarded the ghoul for another moment before scoffing. This one. He reeks of her. But he is not her. Meaning, he was made into what he is now. A byproduct of someone else's experiment. Ito, who had been silently observing the scene, chuckled. Oh, so he's one of those? Tatara folded his arms. Kano's work. At the name, the black-haired ghoul, Kaneki, stiffened. His fingers curled into fists as the weight of realization crashed down on him. Tatara continued without a hint of sympathy. The doctor didn't save you. He didn't, accidentally, turn you into a ghoul. He did it on purpose. You're nothing more than one of his puppets. A test subject. His eyes bore into Kaneki's shrinking form. A failure. A strangled breath left Kaneki's lips. Ultima and Carrera exchanged glances, both noting the way his body quivered, the way his nails dug into his palms. Carrera smirked. Oof. Tough luck, kid. Ultima tilted her head, intrigued. So, what happens now? Tatara turned toward them, ignoring the broken figure before him. He belongs to Ayato now. Do with him as you please. Ayato scoffed. TCH. What a pain. Kaneki barely reacted to the words, his mind swirling in a storm of chaos. His entire existence, everything he thought he knew, shattered in an instant. Tatara, however, had lost interest in him. Instead, he turned toward Ultima, Carrera, and Ito. Come. Ito grinned, hopping to her feet effortlessly. Oh, a field trip, she mused, dusting off her coat. How exciting. Ultima stretched, cracking her neck. About time. I was getting bored. Carrera rolled her shoulders, an eager gleam in her eyes. Let's make it interesting, then. Tatara paid their remarks little mind as he strode toward the exit. Noro, take care of the base. The masked ghoul remained motionless but gave the slightest inclination of his head. With that, Tatara led the three toward an unknown destination, leaving behind the trembling, broken figure of Kaneki in the dimly lit throne room, alone with his thoughts.